Fish O2. A brief synopsis of life. The abstract of this book. This Dharmasastra, a Sanskrit term for a book of moral law, although this particular holy scripture covers far more than mere ethics, named a final instruction sheet for humanity, deals primarily with the three topics: metaphysics, religion, and morality, as summarized in the following three subsections of this chapter. One of the most egregious misunderstandings in the history of mankind, at least within the last 10,000 years or so, is the confusion and the conflation between these three subject matters. As an attempt to alleviate such a glaring confusion and misunderstanding, this holiest book of all, factually, the only truly holy book that has ever been composed, will demonstrate the clear distinction between these three somewhat disparate notions. Nevertheless, in brief, metaphysics is that branch of philosophy that is concerned with the first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, and identity, and sometimes, dealing with the notions of causality, time, and space, hence, metaphysics. Religion is a method by which the individual self is united with the universal self, or, in order to put it in more pragmatic terms, the process of finding genuine peace and happiness. Whilst morality, ethics, deals with how any particular conscious action either benefits or harms oneself, other persons, human society, or the natural environment. Perhaps the root cause for most humans confusing and/or conflating these three differing fields is the fact that virtually all religio-cultural traditions embody all three domains. In order to provide an example, the most pervasive organized religion in human history, Christianity, features a monotheistic metaphysical schema, and as a direct consequence, presupposes devotional religious practices, as well as the moral position known as divine command theory, that is, ethical norms grounded on whatever rules and regulations are imposed upon humanity by the supreme creator God. Even non-theistic traditions, such as Buddhism, are predicated on a kind of metaphysical assumption, usually idealism or monism, practicing a system of religion, yoga, in Sanskrit, as well as a set of contrived moral norms that are to be followed. In the case of Buddhism, a list of manufactured rules, or skillful actions, devised by its founder and main preceptor, Sri Siddhartha Gautama. So, essentially, those who condemn religion of being false, bogus, unscientific, or even downright evil or conflating the religious aspect of the tradition, usually a system of rituals and devotional observances, with the metaphysical and/or moral facets of the tradition. For instance, in the Western world, a majority of individuals accuse the three Abrahamic traditions of being a complete sham, simply due to the fact that their supernatural presuppositions contain a number of scientific inaccuracies, and owing to a fierce hatred for Jewish, Christian, and Islamic ethics, especially their strictures in relation to sexuality and the role of women, even though their mystical practices can be rather beneficial. Conversely, those religionists who blame atheism for being responsible for moral decay, are also conflating metaphysics with morality. For it could easily be argued, nay, proven, that many of the most morally praiseworthy humans in history subscribe to a non-theistic metaphysic. Metaphysics. Everything, both perceptible and imperceptible, that is to say, any gross or subtle object within the material universe that can possibly be perceived with the cognitive faculties, plus the subject, i.e. the observer of all phenomena, is unknowingly to what most humans typically refer, when they use the term, God, because they usually conceive of ultimate reality as being the perfect person, and God is a personal epithet of the impersonal absolute. However, this anthropomorphized conception of the monad is a fictional character of diverse mythologies. According to the most highly enlightened sages in the history of the human species, ultimate reality, far more plausibly, is consubstantially and simultaneously the superimposition of absolutely nothing and absolutely everything, otherwise called the Tao, the Great Spirit, Param Brahman, cosmic consciousness, eternal awareness, independent existence, unconditioned truth, uncaused nature, the universal self, the ground of all being, the indifferentiated substratum of reality, the unified field, etc. Yet, as alluded to above, inaccurately referred to as a personal deity by the masses, most commonly, God, Allah, Yahweh, Bhagavan, Zeus, Jupiter, et al. Subsequent chapters of this book expand upon this monistic, non-dual axiom, known as dual-aspect monism, Advaita, in Sanskrit. In other words, rather than the supreme truth being a separate, blissful, supraconscious being, i.e., the Godhead himself or the Goddess, ultimate reality is eternal existence, limitless awareness, unconditional peace itself, or, even more parsimoniously, pure being, essence. That which can be perceived, cannot be perceiving. This understanding can be factually realized by practicing one or more of the four systems of religion, especially the systematic method of introspection known as Gnosticism, or the Yoga of Knowledge, Jnana Yoga, in Sanskrit. Because the unmanifested absolute, that is, no thing, or pure subjectivity, is infinite creative potentiality, it perpetually actualizes as the manifest creation, that is, everything, or the sum total of all possible objects, in the form of ephemeral, cyclical universes, multiverses. In the case of our particular universe, we reside in a cosmos consisting of space-time, matter and energy, and because phenomenal existence is dualistic, there cannot be a single object without at least one subject. Recently, this monistic haxiety has been termed the transjective. Just as a knife cannot cut itself, nor the mind comprehend itself, nor the eyes see themselves, the absolute cannot know itself, or at least, objectively experience itself, and so, has manifested this phenomenal universe within itself for the purpose of experiencing itself, particularly through the lives of self-aware beings, such as we sophisticated humans. Therefore, this world of duality is really just a play of consciousness within consciousness, in the same way that a dream is a person's sleeping narrative, set within the life story of an awakened individual. Purportedly, this universe, composed of mind and matter, was created from the initial event, the so-called Big Bang, which started, supposedly, as a minute, slightly uneven ball of immeasurably dense light, which in turn, was instigated ultimately by extra-temporal supraconscious bliss. From that primal event, every motion or action that has ever occurred has been a direct or indirect result of this expansion. Just as all the extant energy in the universe was once contained within the inchoate singularity, infinite consciousness was necessarily present at the beginning of the universe, and is, in no way, an epiphenomenon of a neural network. Discrete consciousness, on the other hand, is entirely dependent on the neurological faculty of individual animals. The more highly evolved the species, the greater its cognitive abilities. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma is a Sanskrit maxim from the Chandogya Upanishad, meaning, all this is indeed Brahman, or everything is the universal self alone. There is not but eternal being, conscious awareness, causeless peace, and you are, quintessentially, that. This theory of everything can be more succinctly expressed by the mathematical equation E equals A. Everything equates to infinite awareness. Religion. Humans, essentially, are this eternally aware bliss, acting through an extraordinarily complex biological organism comprised of the 8 rudimentary elements: pseudo-ego, the assumed sense of self, intellect, mind, solids, liquids, gases, heat, fire, and ether, 3-dimensional space. When one peers into a mirror, one does not normally mistake the reflected image to be one's real self, yet that is how we humans conventionally view our ever-mutating forms. Rather, we are, in a more fundamental sense, that which witnesses all transitory phenomena. Everything that can presently be perceived, both tangible and immaterial, including we human beings, is a culmination of the singular, primary manifestation. This is the most accurate and rational explanation for karma. Everything was preordained from the initial spark, and every subsequent action has unfolded as it was predestined in eternity, via an ever-forward moving trajectory. The notion of retributive tit-for-tat, karma, is just that, an unverified notion. Likewise, the idea of a distinct, reincarnating, soul, or spirit, is largely a fallacious belief. As a consequence of residing within this dualistic universe, we experience a lifelong series of fluctuating, transient pleasures and pains, which can take the form of corporeal, emotional, and/or financial pleasure or pain. Surprisingly to most, suffering and pain are not synonymous. Suffering is due to a false sense of personal agency, the belief that one is a separate, independent author of one's thoughts, emotions, and deeds, and likewise, that other persons are autonomous agents, with complete volition to act, think, and feel as they desire. Another way of stating the same postulation is as follows: suffering is due to the intellect being unwilling to accept life as it manifests, moment by moment. Whatever state in which we currently find ourselves is the result of but two factors: our genetic makeup at conception and our present life conditioning, which may include mutating genetic sequence. Every choice ever made by every human and non-human animal was determined by those two factors alone. Therefore, free will is purely illusory, despite what most believe. Chapter 11 insightfully demonstrates this truism. There are 5 symptoms of suffering, all of which are psychological in nature. 1. Guilt. 2. Blame. 3. Pride. 4. Anxiety. 5. Regrets about the past, and expectations for the future. These types of mental suffering are the result of misunderstanding what was explained above, that life is merely happenstance and is not precipitated by any particular entity. No living creature, including Homo sapiens, has individual free will. There is only the universal, divine will at play, acting through every body, to which William Shakespeare famously alluded when he scribed, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players." This illusion of liberty of volition is excruciatingly difficult, if not utterly impossible, for most humans to surmount. The human organism is basically a biopsychological machine, comprised of the 5 gross material elemental groups which one can perceive with the 5 bodily senses, and the 3 subtle material elements which contain images, memories, feelings, and abstract thought objects. The antidote to all mental anguish, first of all, is to discern pain from suffering, and then, to achieve complete relief from that miserable state of existence, by abandoning the erroneous belief in personal authorship and abiding in the primordial sense of being, the unqualified, I am, that is one's core identity. This is akin to the peace that is experienced each night during the dreamless, slow-wave phase of the sleep cycle. This, resting imperturbably as flawless awareness, can be practiced on a regular basis, until it is fully assimilated and integrated into one's life. Every adult human being, from time immemorial, has been either intentionally or unwittingly seeking such causeless peace, most commonly in psycho-physical pleasures, or in creating wealth and in the acquisition of material possessions, or else, by practicing one of the 4 systems of yoga, a Sanskrit term meaning religion, or union, delineated in the 16th chapter of this opus. This peace of mind is also referred to as happiness, joy, or love, and it is often presumed to be a temporal state, because many incorrectly assume that continuous peace is unavailable in this life. Fortunately, this is not the case. It is eminently possible to live one's life acquainted with unbroken peace of mind, if it is destined. So, essentially, actual religion, by definition, is this union of the self with the self, which results in true peace of mind, and it is not at all any bizarre belief system, such as proposed by virtually every single, so-called, religion, that one may come across, such as the Abrahamic faith traditions, the animistic beliefs of aboriginal populations, and even the silly, nonsensical dogmas propounded by most all Hindu and Buddhist schools. In order to seem fair and unbiased, it is indeed possible for adherents of theistic doctrines too, such as Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and the majority of Indian traditions, to find peace and happiness, by practicing a system of devotional yoga, but at the expense of both being susceptible to sectarianism, and to possessing an extremely flawed metaphysical understanding of reality. In other words, one who spends several hours per day praying to a conception of the supreme deity God, singing hymns, reading scriptures, and possibly witnessing his or her faith to others, can certainly reach a level of contentment that greatly surpasses the kind of happiness experienced by the typical human, yet he or she cannot help but be thoroughly deluded in his or her metaphysical beliefs, and will necessarily be afflicted with a somewhat flawed understanding of morality, since, as a monotheist, she will almost certainly subscribe to divine command theory, as opposed to Dharma. Morality. Following Dharma frameworks of authentic morality, ethics, and societal duties is not guaranteed to achieve this desired tranquility of mind, but even so, it is beneficial for individuals, since it establishes a structure that enables one to more easily elevate oneself beyond the mundane, animalistic platform, i.e., the base pursuits of eating, sleeping, and mating. Intrinsic to Dharma is the division of the adult male population into the four classes of society, and the inherent role of girls and women within society, is fully elucidated in latter chapters of this holy scripture. In the all-important 12th chapter of this most important work of all literature, it will be fully demonstrated that there is but a singular meta-ethical theory, and it will be explained how this meta-ethical position applies to our daily actions, a field known as normative ethics. In a nutshell, morality, ethics, revolves around how any human, and sometimes, non-human, action, benefits or harms the actor, other living organisms, human society as a whole, and possibly, the inorganic environment. As clearly stated in the two so-called red letter paragraphs of that lengthy chapter, those intentional actions that result in beneficial outcomes, according to the principles of Dharma, are considered to be moral, whilst those intentional actions that result in harmful outcomes, again, according to the principles of Dharma, are considered to be immoral. In some cases, an action may be neither moral nor immoral, e.g. accidental, and are termed amoral, at least according to Dharma. Because the arena of law, morality, ethics, best referred to by the Sanskrit term, Dharma, can be an extremely contentious area, due to every individual person being predisposed to his/her own unique subjective opinions on moral action, the aforementioned chapter of FISH will provide expanded expositions of arguably the most controversial extant moral conundrums. Notably, the abortion of preborn children, the obligation to give charity, homosexuality, order following, that is, the blind obedience to the dictates of a presumed authority, in moral dilemmas, such as the famous trolley problems, and rescuing a typical family from a burning house, predicaments. Also, it will be thoroughly demonstrated that the field of ethics is absolutely objective, that it is predicated on the evolutionary processes of all species of mammals, and that morality is not a phenomenon exclusive to Homo sapiens, and certainly not dependent on the edicts of a fabled, supernatural deity, God. The implications of this understanding. So, now that you understand the fundamental principles of life, metaphysics, religion, yoga, and ethics, law, morality, and the reason why we humans are suffering here in this ostensibly material universe, you are now able to become liberated from all mental suffering, right? Wrong. It is imperative to approach an authentic spiritual master to assist you in coming to the above realization by slowly undoing your past conditioning. Just as you have been conditioned over an entire lifetime to think one way, you need to be reconditioned to think another way, in alignment with your hypostatic identity as the divine. For one who has himself for a teacher, that man has a veritable fool as his teacher. Even if you closely adhere to the precepts of a competent teacher of yoga religion, you may still not come to a full understanding of life, but if you are sincere, humble and dedicated, you will definitely find more peace in your daily life, all of which was destined to occur, of course. Furthermore, if you are suitably qualified and it was ordained, you may be fortunate enough to receive discipline from one of the extremely rare, fully enlightened masters, residing on earth at any given time, perchance, even the current world teacher himself, and subsequently realize the aforementioned philosophical concepts, by diligently studying authoritative doctrines, especially the most vital work of literature ever composed, this, final instruction sheet for humanity, serving your guru with great reverence and devotion, and by deliberately avoiding unjustified, undue harm to oneself, to other human beings, to society as a whole, and to the natural environment, including other life forms. Most beneficially, you are urged to become vegan, since carnism, the destructive ideology that supports the use and consumption of animal products, especially for food, is arguably the foremost existential crisis, alongside illegitimate non-monarchical governance and feminism. My best wishes for your unique, personal journey towards unalloyed peace and happiness. The cure for any science is unerring knowledge. You are this universe, and you are creating it at every moment, because, you see, it starts now. It didn't begin in the past, there is no past. The Godhead is never an object of its own knowledge, just as a knife doesn't cut itself, fire doesn't burn itself, light doesn't illumine itself. It's always an endless mystery to itself. I don't know. Find out again who you really are, so when death comes, what a funny thing will happen. Death comes, and will find no one to kill. But while you are identified with your role, with your name, with your ego, there's someone to kill. But when you are identified with the whole universe, death finds you already annihilated, and there is no one to kill. A wise rabbi once said, "If I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I, and you are not you." In other words, we are not separate. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing, than a long life spent in a miserable way. The reason we die, is to give us the opportunity to realize what life is all about. The meaning of life, is life itself. Professor Dr. Alan Wilson Watts. British-American philosopher, June 1, 1915 to the 16th of November 1973. The universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything that you want, you already are. Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. We are one. Everything in the universe is within you. Ask all from yourself. What you seek, is seeking you. Don't you know yet? It is your light that lights the world. The lamps are different, but the light is the same. Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Rumi. Persian Sunni Muslim poet, jurist, Islamic scholar, theologian, and Sufi mystic, the 30th of September 1207 to the 17th of December 1273.